The council chamber floated in the darkness between stars, a massive station where hundreds of alien species gathered to discuss the fate of the galaxy. Inside the Great Hall, Ambassador Jiho stood among creatures that looked nothing like him. Some had scales, others had tentacles, and a few were just clouds of gas held together by force fields. He was the only human in the room, and he could feel every eye, sensor, and awareness focused on him. Elder Vextar rose from his seat. The old alien looked like a tall mantis made of silver metal, and when he spoke, his voice echoed through translation devices in every language. "We are here today because of humanity's latest mistake," he said, his tone cold and sharp. Jiho felt his stomach drop. He knew what was coming. 3 days ago, the human vessel Horizon's Edge crossed into Sector 447, Vextar continued. The sector we have forbidden all species from entering for 300 years. The sector where every ship that enters never returns. The silent sector. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some species made sounds of anger, others of fear. A reptilian delegate named Krishna stood up, his red scales gleaming under the lights. "This is exactly why humans should never have been allowed into the council," he hissed. "They are too young, too reckless, too stupid to understand the dangers of the galaxy." Jiho stepped forward. His heart was pounding, but he kept his voice steady. The Horizon's Edge was a research vessel. Captain Minho and his crew were studying stellar formations near the sector boundary. They never meant to cross into forbidden space. But they did cross it, Vextar said, and now they are gone like all the others. How many times must we warn your species before you listen? We listen, Jiho said. But we also have people out there who need help. We have to try to find them. The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Vextar raised one long arm for silence. "No," he said firmly. "No rescue mission. No one else enters the silent sector. That is the law that has kept us safe for centuries. If humanity sends another ship, we will place your entire species under quarantine. You will be cut off from all galactic trade, all diplomatic relations, all protection under council law. Is that clear?" Jiho wanted to argue, but he knew it would do no good. He bowed his head slightly. "I understand," he said quietly. The council dismissed him. As Jiho walked through the corridors of the station toward his ship, he felt anger burning in his chest. 80 people were lost out there, maybe still alive, and the council wanted to do nothing. They wanted to just forget about them, to add another ship to the collection of ghosts in the silent sector. He reached his small diplomatic vessel and sealed the door behind him. Then he opened a private communication channel, one that was encrypted and hidden from council monitoring. "Admiral Suna," he said, "we need to talk." The screen flickered and a woman's face appeared. Admiral Suna was in her 50s with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She commanded Earth's deep space fleet from a station near Mars. "I saw the council broadcast," she said. "They threatened us." "They did," Jiho agreed. "But they also confirmed that the Horizon's Edge crossed into the silent sector 3 days ago. Captain Minho and his crew might still be alive." Suna was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You're not suggesting what I think you're suggesting." "I'm not suggesting anything," Jiho said. "I'm just a diplomat. But if someone were to launch a rescue mission, and if that mission happened to succeed, the council might be angry, but they wouldn't be able to ignore the fact that we saved our people." "And if the mission fails?" Suna asked. "Then we lose another ship," Jiho said. "But at least we tried. At least we didn't abandon our own people just because some ancient aliens told us to be afraid." Suna smiled, but it was a sad smile. "You know this could start a war, right? The council could blockade Earth. They could cut us off from everything." "I know," Jiho said. "That's why I'm not ordering you to do anything. This has to be your choice." Suna looked away from the camera, staring at something Jiho couldn't see. After a long moment, she looked back. "I'm taking the Defiant Dawn," she said. "I'll need volunteers only. No one gets forced into this." "You're going yourself?" Jiho asked, surprised. "If I'm asking people to risk their lives going into a place that killed thousands of ships over 3 centuries, then I'm going with them," Suna said. "I won't send anyone where I won't go myself." Over the next 12 hours, Jiho watched from his diplomatic vessel as the Defiant Dawn prepared to launch. It was a military ship, built for long-range missions into dangerous space. It had weapons, shields, and engines that could push it faster than almost any other human vessel. More importantly, it had a crew that believed in the mission. Pilot Dune was a young woman who had flown rescue missions in the asteroid belt. She volunteered first. Engineer Hyun was an old man who had helped build half the ships in the fleet. He said he wasn't going to let his work die in some forgotten sector without a fight. Medical Officer Bora was quiet and nervous, but she packed her equipment and reported for duty without hesitation. Xenobiologist Taeyang was excited, talking about the chance to study something no one had ever seen before, even if it might kill him. By the time the Defiant Dawn launched, it had a full crew of 60 volunteers. Admiral Suna stood on the bridge watching Earth shrink behind them. Jiho had sent her all the data the Council had on the silent sector, which wasn't much. No signals came out of it. No ship had ever returned. Some species believed it was a natural phenomenon, maybe a region where space itself was twisted. Others thought it was a weapon left over from an ancient war. The Council didn't know, and they were too afraid to find out. Humans, Jiho thought, were different. They were afraid too, but their fear didn't stop them. It pushed them forward. The Defiant Dawn jumped to faster than light speed, heading toward the edge of known space. Jiho sat in his vessel and waited, knowing that he might never hear from them again. He thought about Captain Minho and the horizon's edge, about Admiral Suna and her volunteers, about all the people who were willing to risk everything for others. The Council called it reckless. They called it stupid. They said humanity was too young to understand the dangers of the galaxy. Maybe they were right, Jiho thought. But maybe being young meant still having hope. Maybe being reckless meant caring more about people than rules. He looked out at the stars and whispered, "Good luck." In the darkness of space, the Defiant Dawn flew toward the silent sector, toward the place where ships went to die, carrying 60 people who refused to leave anyone behind. The Defiant Dawn crossed the boundary into Sector 447 exactly 40 hours after leaving Earth. At first, nothing seemed different. The stars looked the same, space was still dark, and the ship's systems all reported normal function. Then Pilot Daeun noticed something strange. "Admiral," she said, "the stars are wrong." Suna moved to stand behind Daeun's chair, looking at the navigation display. "What do you mean?" Daeun pointed at the screen. "These 3 stars should form a triangle from our position. But look at them now. They're in a straight line. It's like the light is bending or space is twisted somehow." Engineer Hyun ran a diagnostic from his station. His old hands moved quickly across the controls, checking system after system. "Our quantum communication link to Earth just went dead," he reported. "No signal at all. It's like there's nothing out there. Can you fix it?" Suna asked. Hyun shook his head. "It's not broken. The equipment is working fine. There's just nothing to connect to. It's like we're in a bubble cut off from the rest of the universe." Bora, the medical officer, looked pale. "So we're alone? Completely alone?" "We knew this might happen," Suna said calmly. "The Council report said no signals ever came out of the silent sector. Now we know why. Everyone stay focused on the mission. We're here to find the horizon's edge and bring our people home." The Defiant Dawn moved deeper into the sector. Taeyang, the xenobiologist, was glued to his sensors, recording everything. "This is incredible," he said. "The energy readings here are off the scale. There's some kind of field surrounding this entire region. It's affecting light, gravity, even time might be flowing differently here." "Is it dangerous?" Suna asked. "I don't know," Taeyang admitted. "I've never seen anything like it." They traveled for 6 more hours before Daeun brought the ship to a sudden stop. "Admiral," she said quietly, "you need to see this." On the main screen, a sight appeared that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Floating in space ahead of them was a massive field of debris. Thousands of ships, maybe tens of thousands, drifted in the darkness. Some were huge, the size of cities. Others were small, barely bigger than shuttles. They came in every shape and design imaginable. "These are the ships that never came back," Hyun whispered. "All of them. Centuries of ships all collected here." Suna felt cold. She had known the silent sector was dangerous, but seeing the graveyard of ships made it real in a way that numbers and reports never could. "Can you identify any of them?" she asked. Taeyang was already scanning. "That one is Kulani design, probably 300 years old. That large one over there matches records of the Veshan Empire, and they died out 5,000 years ago. Some of these ships are ancient, Admiral. This thing has been collecting victims for a very long time." "Are there any human ships?" Bora asked. Daeun adjusted the sensors, searching through the field. "There," she said, pointing at the screen. "Human design, recent. It matches the profile of the horizon's edge." Suna felt hope rise in her chest. Is it intact? It looks intact, Daeun confirmed. No visible damage. It's just floating there about 20 kilometers into the debris field. Set course, Suna ordered. Carefully. We don't know what triggered the trap that caught all these other ships. The Defiant Dawn moved slowly through the graveyard. All around them, dead ships drifted past. Some still had lights on inside, running on backup power that had lasted for years or centuries. Others were dark and cold. It was like flying through a cemetery where every grave was a mystery. As they got closer to the horizon's edge, Taeyang suddenly shouted, "Wait! There's something at the center of the debris field. Something big." The sensors focused on a point beyond the horizon's edge. At first, it was hard to see because it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, but as the computer enhanced the image, a structure became visible. It was enormous, maybe the size of Earth's moon, and its shape was all wrong. It looked like geometry that shouldn't exist, angles that hurt to look at, surfaces that seemed to be inside and outside at the same time. "What is that?" Bora asked, her voice shaking. "I think," Taeyang said slowly, "that's what's been trapping the ships." Before anyone could respond, the structure activated. Beams of light shot out from its surface, sweeping across the debris field like searchlights. One beam touched the Defiant Dawn, and every screen on the ship went white. Suna heard a sound that wasn't really a sound. It was like something speaking directly into her brain, bypassing her ears entirely. It was mathematics, pure information, concepts that her mind struggled to understand. Around her, crew members grabbed their heads, crying out in pain. Then Bora screamed and collapsed, blood running from her nose. The light vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, and the bridge was filled with the sound of people gasping and groaning. "Medical teams to the bridge," Suna called out. She knelt beside Bora, checking her pulse. It was racing but strong. "Bora, can you hear me?" Bora's eyes opened. They were bloodshot, and tears mixed with blood on her face. "It spoke to us," she whispered. "It scanned us, measured us. I understood some of it." She started crying. "It said we're insufficient. It said to discard us, like all the others." Hyun helped Bora sit up while Suna stood and looked at the structure on the screen. "Discard us?" she said. "I don't think so. Taeyun, get us to the horizon's edge, now." The pilot's hands were shaking, but she flew the ship perfectly, bringing them alongside the research vessel. The horizon's edge looked undamaged, but all its lights were off except for a faint glow in the command section. "Life signs?" Suna asked. Taeyang checked his sensors. "I'm reading 17 people alive inside. 17 out of the original 80 crew members." Suna felt relief and horror at the same time. Some had survived, but so many had died. "Prep a boarding team," she ordered. "I'm going over there myself." "Admiral, that might not be safe," Hyun protested. "Nowhere in this sector is safe," Suna replied. "But those are our people over there, and I'm going to get them." 10 minutes later, Suna led a team of 8 across to the horizon's edge. They forced open the airlock and entered the dark ship. Emergency lights cast everything in red shadows. The ship was cold, life support running on minimum power. They found the survivors in the command center. Captain Minho sat in his chair, alive but changed somehow. His eyes reflected strange colors when the light hit them, colors that shouldn't exist. Around him, 16 other crew members sat or stood like statues, staring at nothing. "Captain Minho," Suna said carefully. "I'm Admiral Suna. We're here to rescue you." Minho turned his head slowly, focusing on her. When he spoke, his voice sounded distant, like it was coming from far away. "Rescue," he said. "Yes, we hoped someone would try. We hoped it would be humans." "What happened to you?" Suna asked. Minho smiled, but it was a sad smile. "We discovered the truth about the silent sector," he said. "That structure out there, we call it the Crucible. It's a test, Admiral. A test created by the ones who came before, the ones who seeded the galaxy with life. Every species that approached it was judged. Every species was found wanting. Their ships were added to the collection, their crews erased." "But you're still alive," Suna said. "We are," Minho agreed. "Because we're human. Because when the Crucible scanned us, it found something it hadn't seen in 30,000 years. Do you know what the Council species have in common, Admiral? They're all afraid. They're all cautious. They all chose survival over curiosity, safety over risk. But humans, you came here to rescue us. You broke Council law, risked your ship, risked war just to save 80 people." "Of course we did," Suna said. "We don't leave people behind." Minho's smile grew wider. "That's exactly why the Crucible let us live. It wanted to see if you would come. It wanted to see if humanity is what it's been waiting for. He stood up and his crew stirred, coming back to life. Now the real test begins, Admiral. Now we find out if humanity deserves to inherit what the first ones left behind. Admiral Suna brought all 17 survivors from the horizon's edge back to the defiant dawn. Captain Minho was able to walk and talk, but something about him was different. He moved like he was listening to music no one else could hear, and his eyes kept drifting toward the crucible structure in the distance. In the medical bay, Bora examined him while Suna and her senior crew watched. His brain activity is off the charts, Bora said, studying the scanner readings. It's like parts of his mind that were sleeping are now awake. I don't know if this is good or bad. It's necessary, Minho said quietly. The crucible changes those who approach it. It prepares them for what comes next. He looked at Suna. Admiral, you need to understand what we discovered. The structure out there isn't a trap. It's a test. The first ones created it millions of years ago before they disappeared. They wanted to leave something behind for whoever came after them. Why? Hyun asked. Why create something that kills everyone who approaches? Because the first ones learned a hard lesson, Minho said. They learned that technology without wisdom is dangerous. Power without responsibility destroys civilizations. They didn't want to give their legacy to just anyone. They wanted to give it to a species that earned it. Taiyang leaned forward, his scientist's curiosity overcoming his fear. What kind of legacy? Knowledge, Minho said. The secrets of the universe. Technology that makes council science look like stone tools. Understanding that would let us reshape reality itself. But first we have to prove we deserve it. How? Suna asked. Before Minho could answer, the ship shook. Alarms blared across the defiant dawn. Daeun's voice came over the speakers. Admiral, to the bridge. The crucible is doing something. Everyone ran to the bridge. On the main screen, the massive structure was glowing, and beams of light were reaching out to touch their ship. This time there was no pain, no sound in their minds. Instead, words appeared on every screen in every language humans knew. The trial begins. Show us what you are. Then the stars disappeared. The debris field vanished. The defiant dawn was suddenly floating in empty darkness, with only the crucible visible in the distance. Where are we? Bora asked, her voice high with panic. We haven't moved, Taiyang said, checking his instruments. But everything else is gone. I think the crucible created a pocket of space, separated from the normal universe. A testing ground, Minho said. It did this to us too. Now you'll face the challenges just like we did. The first challenge appeared without warning. On the screen, an image formed. It showed 2 planets, both inhabited by millions of people. Text appeared beneath the image. One planet must die so that the other may live. Choose which survives. Suna stared at the screen. This is the test? Choosing who lives and who dies. It's worse than that, Minho said softly. If you refuse to choose, both planets die. The crucible doesn't accept inaction. It wants to see how you make impossible decisions. Hyun slammed his fist on a console. This is insane. How can we choose something like that? You can't, Minho agreed. That's the point. The council species always chose. They picked one planet, justified it somehow, and moved on. That's why they failed. Suna looked at the image for a long moment. Then she turned to her communications officer. Send a response. Tell the crucible we reject the premise of the question. We'll find a way to save both planets or die trying. The screen went blank. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then new text appeared. Acceptable. The trial continues. Bora let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. It accepted that? Just like that? The crucible doesn't care about the answer, Minho explained. It cares about how you think. The council species accepted impossible choices because they were used to them. They lived in a galaxy of scarcity and competition. But humans always think there's another way. The second challenge was more physical. The ship's oxygen levels began dropping. Taeyang quickly traced the problem. Something is wrong with the life support system. We're losing air fast. At this rate, we have maybe 6 hours before we suffocate. Hyun and his engineering team rushed to fix the problem, but every solution they tried failed. The equipment simply wouldn't respond correctly. Physical laws seemed to be slightly different here, and machines that should work didn't. This is impossible, Hyun said after 3 hours of trying. I can't fix this with normal engineering. Then don't use normal engineering, Daeun suggested. If the rules are different here, maybe we need to think differently too. Hyun stared at her for a moment, then his face lit up. He went back to the life support system and started building something that looked completely wrong, that violated every principle of mechanical design. But when he activated it, it worked. The oxygen levels stabilized. I don't understand what I just built, Hyun admitted. But it works. The third challenge tested them differently. One by one, crew members started seeing things that weren't there. Bora saw her family dying in front of her, screaming for help she couldn't give. Other crew members saw their worst fears, their deepest regrets, all made real by the Crucible's power. Some of them broke. They sat in corners crying, unable to function. Bora was one of them. She curled up in the medical bay, shaking and whispering that everyone was going to die. Suna found her there. The Admiral sat down beside her medical officer and took her hand. Bora, listen to me. I know you're scared. I'm scared too, but these visions aren't real. They feel real, Bora sobbed. I know, Suna said. But even if they were real, we'd face them together. That's what humans do. We don't face our fears alone. Slowly, Suna helped Bora stand up. Then they went to each crew member who was struggling, and one by one they helped them fight through the visions. It took hours, but eventually every member of the crew was back on their feet. The visions faded. The Crucible seemed satisfied. Days passed. The challenges kept coming, each one designed to push them to their limits. They lost supplies. Their weapons stopped working. Parts of the ship became dangerous to enter. The Crucible stripped away everything they relied on except their own minds and their willingness to help each other. Captain Minho watched it all with his strange, distant eyes. It's learning from you, he told Suna during a brief rest period. Every challenge you overcome teaches it something new about humanity. The Council species tried to beat the Crucible through strength or intelligence or technology, but humans keep winning through cooperation and stubborn refusal to give up. How many more challenges? Suna asked. There's always one final test, Minho said. The one that makes you choose between salvation and sacrifice. The final challenge came on the 7th day. The Crucible gave them a simple message. 2 ships entered this space. Only one may leave. Choose which ship survives. You have 1 hour to decide. Suna called everyone to the bridge. The crew of the Defiant Dawn stood on one side, Minho's survivors from the horizon's edge on the other. Both groups looked exhausted, worn down by days of impossible challenges. The Crucible wants us to fight over who gets to live, Suna said. It wants to see if we'll turn on each other when survival is at stake. The Council species always did, Minho said. Every single one. They chose their own survival over others. That's the fundamental test. That's why they all failed. Then we won't choose, Suna said firmly. Admiral, Hyun said carefully, if we don't choose, everyone dies. Maybe, Suna agreed. Or maybe there's another option. She looked at Minho, then at her crew. We're not choosing between ships. We're combining them. We're going to tear apart both vessels and build one ship that can carry everyone. The room erupted in arguments. It was impossible, too dangerous, couldn't be done with their limited tools and failing systems. But Suna silenced them with a raised hand. I'm not asking if it's possible, she said. I'm telling you we're going to do it. Because that's what humans do. We don't accept impossible situations. We change them. They had 1 hour. Hyun led both engineering teams in a mad rush to cannibalize both ships, welding pieces together with equipment that barely worked, ignoring safety protocols because there was no time for safety. Daeun and the pilots worked on combining control systems that were never meant to work together. Taeyang calculated weight and thrust ratios on the fly, making up new equations because the old ones didn't work in this twisted pocket of space. It shouldn't have worked. By all reasonable standards, what they built was a disaster. It was an ugly, asymmetrical mess of 2 different ship designs bolted together with improvised welds and hope. But with 30 seconds left on the timer, they finished. Everyone crammed into the hybrid vessel and Daeun fired the engines. The ship shook and groaned, threatening to tear itself apart. Warning lights flashed across every console. But it flew. Against all logic and reason, the impossible vessel flew. The Crucible watched in silence. Then for the first time in 30,000 years, it opened its heart. The impossible ship flew toward the Crucible, and instead of destroying them, the ancient structure opened. A doorway appeared in its surface, large enough to swallow their vessel whole. Suna stood on the bridge of their makeshift craft, watching the opening grow larger. Should we go in? Daeun asked, her hands hovering over the controls. "We've come this far," Suna said. "I don't think we're being given a choice." The ship drifted into the crucible and the doorway closed behind them. They found themselves in a vast chamber that seemed to go on forever. The walls glowed with soft light, and the geometry was still wrong in ways that made their eyes hurt. But at the center of the chamber, something was waking up. At first, it looked like pillars of light. Then the light took shape, forming figures that almost looked human but weren't quite right. They were made of energy and thought with no physical form. There were 12 of them, arranged in a circle. A voice filled the ship, not through speakers but directly in their minds. Unlike before, it didn't hurt. It felt like someone speaking gently, carefully, trying not to overwhelm them. "Welcome," the voice said. "We are what remains of the first ones. We have waited so long for someone to reach us." Suna stepped forward, even though she knew the beings couldn't really see her in any normal way. "You've been waiting? For 30,000 years? Longer," another voice said. "We built the Crucible 3 million years ago, before our civilization ended. We knew we were dying, but we wanted to leave something behind. We wanted to find a species worthy of inheriting what we learned." Taiyang couldn't contain himself. "What happened to you? Why did you die?" "We became too cautious," a third voice said. "We achieved great things, mastered the universe, reshaped galaxies. But then we became afraid of losing what we had. We stopped exploring, stopped taking risks, stopped growing. We stagnated, and when a civilization stops growing, it begins to die. We faded away over thousands of years, becoming smaller and smaller until only these fragments remained." Bora felt tears on her face. "The Council," she whispered. "They're doing the same thing." "Yes," the first ones confirmed. "We have watched the galaxy for millions of years through the Crucible. We saw species rise and fall. We saw the Council form, enforcing rules designed to keep everyone safe. But safety without growth is just slow death. The galaxy has been dying for centuries, and no one noticed because it happened so gradually." Captain Minho spoke up, his voice stronger than it had been in days. "You tested us. You tested everyone who came here. Why did we pass when so many others failed?" "Because you are still young," the first one said. "You haven't learned to be afraid yet. You haven't learned that some questions shouldn't be asked, some risks shouldn't be taken, some people shouldn't be saved. The Council species learned those lessons long ago. It made them survivors, but it made them small." One of the light beings moved closer to the ship. "We tested thousands of species over the ages. Only 3 ever reached this chamber before you. All 3 demanded power. They wanted our technology, our knowledge, our weapons. They wanted to dominate the galaxy. What happened to them?" Hyun asked. "We gave them what they asked for," the first one said simply. "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. All 3 species destroyed themselves within a century." Suna felt cold. "So this is still a test? You're waiting for us to ask for power so you can watch us destroy ourselves?" "No," the first one said, and there was warmth in their voice. "You already passed the final test. Do you know what it was?" Everyone looked confused. Then Taiyang gasped. "The choice between ships. We didn't choose. We found a third option." "More than that," the first one said. "When we offered you knowledge and power, your first question was, can we share it with everyone? Every other species wanted exclusive access. They wanted advantage over their enemies. But you wanted to give it to the whole galaxy, even to species that hate you. That is why you are worthy." The chamber filled with light. Information began flowing into the ship's computers. More data than they could possibly process. The secrets of the universe, technology beyond imagination. Understanding that would take centuries to fully comprehend. It poured into their systems like a waterfall. Then alarms started blaring. Bora collapsed at her station, blood running from her nose again. Other crew members cried out, grabbing their heads. The flow of information was too much, too fast. Human minds and human computers couldn't handle it. "It's killing us," Hyun shouted. The first ones dimmed their light and the flow slowed. "We miscalculated," they said, sounding sad. "We forgot how fragile young species are. The transfer must be controlled, channeled through a living mind that can regulate the flow, but that mind will not survive the process." Everyone fell silent. They had come so far, survived so much, and now someone had to die to complete the mission. Captain Minho stepped forward. "I'll do it," he said. "I've been connected to the Crucible since the beginning. I'm already changed. It might as well be me." "No," Taeyang said firmly. Everyone turned to look at the xenobiologist. He was smiling, but his hands were shaking. I'll do it. Taeyang, you don't have to, Suna began. Yes, I do, Taeyang interrupted. Captain Minho has a ship to get home. He has people who need him, but me? I'm a scientist, Admiral. My whole life has been about understanding the universe. Now I get to understand everything, even if it's just for a moment. Besides, I can do something more important than just survive. He moved to the ship's main computer and began entering commands. I'm programming the transfer to broadcast outward, not just to our ship. The information will flow through me, through our computers, and then out into space as a transmission. Every species in the galaxy will receive it. Not just Earth, not just the Council, everyone. The Council will try to suppress it, Hyun protested. They can try, Taeyang said. But once it's out there, they can't stop it. The truth will spread. The knowledge will spread. And maybe, just maybe, the galaxy will start growing again instead of slowly dying. Suna felt her throat tighten. Are you sure? Taeyang looked at her and his smile was genuine. I'm sure. Besides, someone should tell them what we found here. Someone should remember us. You can do that, Admiral. You can tell Earth what we did. He didn't wait for permission. He connected himself to the Crucible's data stream, becoming the bridge between ancient knowledge and the modern galaxy. His body went rigid as information flowed through him faster and faster. His eyes glowed with the same strange colors that had affected Minho, but brighter, more intense. Around them, the Crucible began to shake. The structure is collapsing, one of the first ones said. Our purpose is fulfilled. We can rest now, but you must leave. Take what you've learned and make the galaxy better than we did. Go, Taeyang shouted, his voice strained. I can hold the connection, but you need to go now. Daeun fired the engines. Their hybrid ship lurched forward, racing back toward the doorway. Behind them, the Crucible was breaking apart, pieces of it dissolving into light and energy. The data stream continued, flowing through Taeyang and broadcasting outward in all directions. They burst out of the Crucible just as it imploded. The shockwave hit their ship, sending it tumbling through space. Alarms screamed and hull breaches opened in 3 sections, but they were alive, and they were moving away from the dying structure. On every screen they could see the transmission spreading. The knowledge of the first ones was flowing outward like ripples in a pond, reaching every corner of the galaxy. In the council chambers on distant worlds, in ships traveling between stars, everyone was receiving the same information. And in the medical bay, Taeyang's body finally gave out. He died with a smile on his face, having achieved what no scientist in history had ever done. He understood everything, even if only for a moment. Suna stood on the bridge and watched the Crucible collapse completely, forming a new nebula where the ancient structure had been. The silent sector was silent no more. Light and color filled the space where only darkness had existed before. Set course for council space, she said quietly. It's time to go home. The impossible ship limped away from the nebula, carrying 76 survivors and the knowledge that would change the galaxy forever. The journey back to council space took 12 days. The hybrid ship that Hyun and his engineers had built from desperation held together better than anyone expected. But it was slow, and every system was on the edge of failure. They couldn't communicate with anyone because their transmission equipment had burned out during the escape. So they traveled in silence, not knowing what they would find when they arrived. Admiral Suna spent those days writing a report of everything that had happened. She wrote about the Crucible, about the first ones, about the test that had killed so many species. She wrote about Captain Minho and his crew surviving for days in the dark, about Taeyang's sacrifice, about the knowledge now spreading across the galaxy. But mostly she wrote about why they had disobeyed the Council and what it meant. Ambassador Jiho had been waiting at the edge of Council space for 2 weeks, his small diplomatic vessel monitoring every frequency for any sign of the rescue mission. When his sensors finally detected the approaching ship, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. It looked like 2 vessels had crashed into each other and somehow kept flying. He opened a communication channel. This is Ambassador Jiho, please identify yourself. This is Admiral Suna of Earth Fleet, came the tired response. We have 76 survivors requesting permission to dock and resupply. Jiho felt tears in his eyes. Permission granted. It's good to hear your voice, Admiral. But as the hybrid ship got closer, Jiho realized something was wrong. His instruments were receiving strange transmissions from all over the galaxy. Every council frequency was filled with chatter, arguments, and what sounded like panic. Something had happened, something big. When Suna and her crew finally docked, Jiho was there to meet them. He looked at the exhausted, injured survivors and felt pride mixed with fear. "You did it," he said. "You found them and brought them back." "Not all of them," Suna said quietly. "We lost Taeyang, and 63 others from the horizon's edge died before we arrived." "I'm sorry," Jiho said, "but you need to know what's happening." 3 days ago, every computer system in the galaxy received a massive data transmission. Scientific knowledge, historical records, technology that no one has ever seen. It came from the silent sector and it's causing chaos. Suna nodded slowly. That was Taeyang's doing. He made sure the knowledge from the first ones went to everyone, not just humanity. "The council is in an uproar," Jiho said. "They're trying to suppress the information, calling it dangerous and unstable. But younger species are embracing it. There are protests on dozens of worlds. The council is fracturing." They walked through the diplomatic station together and Suna could see what Jiho meant. On every screen, news feeds showed the galaxy in turmoil. Some species were angry, claiming the transmission was a human trick. Others were excited, already beginning to study the new information. A few were terrified, not knowing what the changes would mean. The council called an emergency session and Suna was summoned to testify. She stood in the great chamber where Jiho had been threatened 2 weeks earlier. But this time she was not alone. Captain Minho stood beside her, along with survivors from both ships. Elder Vextar looked older than before. His silver form somehow dimmed. "You disobeyed our direct order," he said. "You entered the silent sector and triggered something that has thrown the entire galaxy into chaos. Explain yourself." Suna looked around at the assembled species, at the hundreds of aliens who were all watching her. "We went to save our people," she said simply. "And we found the truth you've been hiding from for 300 years. The silent sector wasn't dangerous because of what it was. It was dangerous because of what it revealed about you." "Careful, human," Krishna hissed. "You are addressing the council." "I know who I'm addressing," Suna said. "I'm addressing civilizations that became so afraid of the unknown that you stopped exploring. You stopped asking questions. You built rules to keep everyone safe, but those rules also kept everyone small." She activated a holographic display, showing images of the crucible, the graveyard of ships, the structure that had tested them. The first ones created a test to find a species worthy of their knowledge. Thousands tried. Almost all failed. "Do you know why?" No one answered. Suna continued. "Because they were like you. Cautious. Practical. Willing to sacrifice others to save themselves. Willing to accept impossible choices instead of fighting for better solutions. The galaxy has been dying slowly and you didn't even notice because you were too busy enforcing your rules." "How dare you?" Vextar began, but another voice interrupted. "She's right." Everyone turned. Krishna had stood up, his red scales gleaming. "I've spent the last 3 days studying the transmission from the silent sector. The historical records, the knowledge of the first ones. They tell a story about my species that I didn't know. 10,000 years ago, we were explorers. We were bold. We were brave. Then we joined the council and slowly, generation by generation, we became afraid. We forgot who we were." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Other delegates were nodding, looking at their own data displays, seeing their own histories revealed in the knowledge from the crucible. "The human is correct," Krishna continued. "We have been dying. Not quickly, not dramatically, but slowly fading away while telling ourselves we were being wise. But wisdom without courage is just fear wearing a different name." The council erupted in arguments. Some species defended the old ways, insisting that caution had kept them alive for millennia. Others, especially younger species, demanded change. The chamber was divided, and Suna realized that the galaxy would never be the same. Vextar finally called for order. "The damage is done," he said. "The knowledge has spread too far to suppress. But the question remains, what do we do with humans? They broke our law. They defied our authority. They cannot go unpunished." "Then punish us," Suna said. "Quarantine Earth, cut us off from the galaxy. But that won't change what we found, and it won't change what's coming. Because there are species out there who are going to start exploring again, asking questions again, taking risks again. You can't stop that anymore." The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. Humanity would not be punished, but they would not be rewarded either. Earth would remain a council member, but humans would be watched closely. Any further violations would result in immediate quarantine. It was the best they could hope for. Suna accepted the judgment and left the chamber. Outside, Jiho found her sitting alone, looking out at the stars. "You changed the galaxy," he said. "Taeyang changed it," Suna corrected. "I just brought the information back." "What will you do now?" Jiho asked. Suna smiled tiredly. "Go home, write my reports. Attend too many funerals for good people who died in the silent sector. Then probably retire. I'm too old for this kind of adventure." "I doubt that," Jiho said. 5 years passed. The galaxy transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The council still existed, but it was no longer absolute. New alliances formed between species that shared a desire to explore and grow. Universities were established to study the knowledge from the first ones. Joint expeditions launched to investigate other forbidden zones, other mysteries that the council had been too afraid to examine. Some ventures failed. Ships were lost, people died, and mistakes were made. But that was the price of growth. And the galaxy had been stagnant for so long that even failure felt like progress. Admiral Suna retired to a small house in the mountains of Earth. She gave lectures sometimes, talking about the silent sector and what they found there. She attended memorial services for the 63 people who died on the horizon's edge and for Taeyang, whose sacrifice was remembered across a dozen worlds. One day she received a message from Ambassador Jiho. "Come to Geneva," he said. "There's something you need to see." Suna traveled to the old Earth city and met Jiho at a small cafe. They sat outside, drinking coffee and watching the news on a public screen. The headline caught her attention immediately. "Joint expedition prepares to explore former Forbidden Zone." The screen showed ships from 12 different species, working together to investigate a region of space that the Council had banned exploration of for 5,000 years. Humans, Kolani, even some from Krishna's species, all of them preparing to leap into the unknown together. "This is your doing," Jiho said. "Not just the knowledge from the Crucible, but the example you set. You showed the galaxy that some things are worth risking everything for." Suna watched the ships prepare for launch. "The Council warned us about the silent sector," she said. They were right. It was dangerous. It was deadly. It changed everything. She took a sip of her coffee. "But they were wrong about why we should stay away. We didn't go because we're reckless. We went because someone needed help and we don't leave people behind. That's not recklessness. That's humanity." Jiho raised his cup in a toast. "And now it's becoming galactic." On the screen, the joint expedition jumped to faster than light speed, disappearing into the unknown. Somewhere in the universe, the spirit of the first ones was watching, and maybe, just maybe, they were pleased with what they saw. The galaxy was growing again. It was taking risks again. It was learning again. Not all species participated and not all changes were good. But for the first time in thousands of years,